So many of our products are designed for a particular use case. They're supplements. They're meant to help fix deficiencies, and whether it's neurological stuff or physiological stuff, we help folks in those different ways. Because we have things for a whole host of different issues, nobody needs everything that we sell. By definition, that's the idea. This is another one of those products that I personally use. Do not go without. My sons use it. My wife uses this. What are we talking about?
Creatine Essentials is the latest offering in what you were referring to here. Creatine is a naturally occurring compound that's found actually in small amounts in some food like red meat and fish. It's also produced by our bodies. Primarily, it is stored in the muscle where it plays its major role in energy production, which is specifically the system of the ATP and phosphocreatine system. You can basically think of ATP again as the direct fuel source for intense or any sort of muscle contractions. When you perform short, intense bursts of activity like sprinting or lifting weights, jumping, your body more rapidly depletes its ATP reserve, and creatine can help quickly regenerate this ATP, allowing us to hopefully sustain these high intensity efforts for longer durations.
That makes sense.
So that's the gist of it. Much more sciencey than that, but over the years we've had different variations of creatine. We had already a creatine monohydrate product for sale on the website. We just really switched to this one just because it was a better value. The most recent one that we carried was a creatine monohydrate. So if you feel strange switching to this one, don't. Just know that you're getting a little bit better of a price. It's creatine monohydrate. Monohydrate is the form that, people have tried time and time again to replace and make a better version, a more absorbable version, one that you can buffer, one that you can this. But again, time has proven that this is still the way. And until that time comes, we're going to stick with creatine monohydrate.
Cool. So this is a change primarily to save money for folks.
Exactly.
That's pretty important these days.
That's right. Occasionally, yeah, we can mix that in for sure. We have in preparation for this, I did review an older creatine segment that we did, and I feel that the general creatine discussion that we had still applies. So if you want to nerd out a little more on creatine, I still think that's the way to go. In broad strokes, we can talk a little bit more about who creatine supplementation is for.
Okay. Well, then tell me, Dante, who is creatine supplementation for?
So similar to protein supplementation or whey protein powders, whatever, it's not just for the elite athletes, although they do stand to benefit from having a little more protein on hand, if you will.
Yeah.
Again, athletes and lifters can certainly benefit. Any activity requiring bursts of power and strength. And what we've seen is even these longer endurance activities, those individuals participating in those types of activities stand to benefit as well.
And for those people, and not giving numbers specifically, but the experience is that they can work a little harder for a little longer. Is that the idea?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can even think of it as on your bench press, you think of a bench press as a pretty short, powerful movement.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a set of 5 or 10 reps, and something like this, I guess it depends on the metric you're looking for, but we've seen benefits of upwards of 10 to 15%.
Wow.
In responders. So that's an extra rep. That's an extra few seconds you can shave off a given time trial or
Sure.
However, my math is maybe not mathing, but you understand my point.
I can carry a few more bags of groceries from the trunk to the house without a second trip.
Exactly.
That's the goal.
Exactly. And so the idea is while it sounds very small in benefit, if you continue to improve your capacity to work or to get things done, to perform better physically, then we can realize more of the health benefits, the overall performance benefits. So it is certainly centered towards those aiming for a edge in performance.
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, that spectrum of health to performance blurs a little bit. And so that's why I don't like to just fully say, well, unless you're training for a powerlifting meet, you shouldn't take creatine. It's a little gray. We all like to think of ourselves as capable still or athletes or former athletes. And so it certainly covers more of a broad spectrum of people.
Very cool.
Also, creatine, you mentioned I guess we talked about the quick burst in performance improvements and those types of exercises. Beyond exercise, it can help with recovery to a degree. So if your exercise is a little more intense, the hope is that because of few of these mechanisms at play, that you can recover better session to session. There are some cognitive benefits being touted around the internet right now.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I'll say. I'm hopeful that there's going to be more solid evidence behind that, but something to keep in mind, and something that certainly is not a bad thing to be floating around, but to think that a scoop of creatine is going to make you feel like, you just
10% smarter.
You took the limitless pill, then I don't know. Maybe that's not the best expectations.
So the cognitive benefits have not been fully vetted out, certainly not to the level that the physical benefits have.
Yes.
But know that is being explored, and it does seem to be promising.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Exactly. We mentioned, again, creatine monohydrate, just to summarize, is the most well-researched form of creatine. It's been around for decades, hundreds of scientific trials. Benefits for strength, power, muscle mass, and recovery are well documented. Now, there are some responders and non-responders with creatine.
Interesting.
It's hard to know exactly where you stand. My understanding overall is that it might have to do with a few factors that are out of our control. Some people just have varying levels of creatine in their muscle at sort of baseline. So that maybe plays into who's responding and who's not. There are people who maybe just don't absorb it as well, and therefore they don't see the benefit. In these trials, those that responded, most people that have responded to creatine, they also had the blood levels in the level in the muscle through biopsy that showed that there was actually an increase in the reserves of creatine, more or less. So for whatever reason, there are people who it's not kind of going where it's supposed to, and they're still flushing a lot of that out. But don't really have to worry about that, in my opinion, because there's really nothing in the research as far as it being causing a downside to performance.
Is there any downside to trying it?
In terms of like purely performance metrics, not that I'm aware of. Now, as far as it's a good place to pop in some side effects. Now, more with the individuals who have experimented with loading doses. So instead of the usual 3 to 5 grams once a day, there are people who have done 20.
That's the recommended way to do it. It's 3 to 5 grams once a day in perpetuity, theoretically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And those that have done the 5 times, 6 times as much as that over the course of a week or 5 days, that's the most likely scenario that you'll see some of the bloating, GI distress, nausea, diarrhea. Even at that, it's a very low percentage. But your very kind of standard dosing is not often a reason for concern. There's a lot of people who are concerned about how this affects kidney function. People get confused with creatine and creatinine. There's just a few letters different. Now, creatine does get converted to creatinine by the kidneys and is excreted as a waste product, more or less. But that's simply just because you have more creatine floating through the blood and in the muscle. And so it's going to reflect somewhere along the line. There are other tests. There's one test specifically that you can look at that has maybe a little more of gives you a little more accurate insight into if this is actually causing kidney injury, creatine supplementation. And anytime that's been looked at, there was very little instance of this doing any sort of harm to the kidneys.
Makes sense. Because
creatine sort of gets mentioned in this performance-oriented anabolic sort of discussion, of course, it gets wrapped into I heard creatine causes hair loss and I heard it does this. And at this point, I'm not really aware that there's a strong signal towards hair loss, for example. So a lot of guys and gals are concerned about that at this point in time, we don't really see a need for major concern. There's also the concern of increasing water retention, which again, I feel like I heard that when I was 12 years old and when the creatine discussions were getting floated at our old gym. But it does not always lead to this, especially in the long term. There's no significant changes in the long term with total body water. Now it might increase some temporary changes in intracellular water, but that's not really going to be reflected in how you look, how you feel. So I think a lot of that's kind of gotten misconstrued. And if anything, I may not be saying this 100% correctly, but those who notice maybe a temporary kind of influx in their body weight, maybe due to teeny tiny bit of water changes at the level of the muscle, that is maybe a good thing.
It's a good thing. That's a good
thing. And it shows that maybe there is some response happening. And in the back of your mind, you know that sort of that short-term fluctuation in weight will likely normalize. And again, there's some signaling and there's some different things happening at the level of the muscle and the level of those cells that can signify maybe there's some growth and some change in the muscle happening that we are ultimately shooting for.
Very cool. All right. Well, we touched on it briefly. How does one use the creatine essentials?
So I feel that the loading phase is generally not required.
Yeah.
If you anecdotally, you had a cousin 25 years ago that swears by it and they loaded it and then they were breaking school records or something, then go for it. You know what I mean? If you want to try the loading dose, you can do that. Again, this smaller daily dose of creatine at 3 to 5 grams per day, whether it's in the morning or at night, is adequate to, again, the goal is to increase your stores of creatine sort of at baseline, and that should get you there, no problem. It's important to highlight, I think, that both males and females can use this. Again, because
my wife does.
Yeah, I think, again, maybe I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it feels like because creatine often gets mentioned in this like performance enhancing supplement realm, that it's like, well, of course we wouldn't want this group to use it, or maybe women shouldn't use. You know, it's like, well, sure, there may be pregnancy and really young kids and certain populations you might want to give pause, but just kind of your average healthy male, healthy female, I see really no difference in why one would or wouldn't take it.
Especially if your
be a good option.
Body already creates it. Mm-hmm. It makes sense that there's nothing wrong with having just a little bit more in there.
Exactly. And I don't think that, I think that even older adults who maybe are just starting to exercise again, to maybe add a protein supplement, to add a creatine supplement, something like that just adds to the almost like the ritual, the practice of, hey, I go to the gym or I go outside to walk or I do my thing, I go play pickleball or whatever it is, that when I'm done, I have my shake, I have my like little scoop of creatine. Just there's something to those kind of healthy behaviors that aren't just behaviors. They're helping hopefully create a little more muscle mass, create a little more adaptation, and ultimately help you in the long run.
I love it. That's so fantastic. All right. That's it on this Creatine Essentials, available now in our store, askjoedimatteo.com.